Introduction. Zhaolin traverses into the world of Game of Thrones, activating the Supreme System, thereby embarking on a path to conquer the realm. Green Seer. I cannot fathom his past, nor foresee his future. Melisandre. The flames bow to him. He is indeed the one foretold as the King of Light. Night King. Xiaolin is a demon without his influence. I would have already ruled the world. Daenerys. Xiaolin, I believe I have fallen for you. 1. The plot commences, a clash amongst men, in the shadowed lands of Essos, where dragons once roamed. A wealthy merchant clutches 3 scaled, peculiar eggs, scanning his surroundings anxiously. Moments later, at the end of a muddy path, a figure clad in black emerges. Upon sighting the man, the merchant's countenance brightens, and he rushes forth. My lord, I have brought the dragon egg fossils you requested. Moreover, my eldest son, in his folly, has offended you. I implore you to forgive him. With a deep bow, he respectfully presents the strange eggs to the man in black. Yet, the man remains silent, merely accepting the eggs before turning to depart. As he reaches the end of the path, he glances back and speaks coolly. Your family is now reduced to, but yourself such solitude must be quite heavy. Alas, perhaps you should join them. With these words, the merchant's eyes widen in horror, his consciousness fading until he collapses to the ground. Having concluded this grim task, the man in black halts, murmuring to himself. It has been 10 years the plan has been set in motion, everything is about to begin. He gazes blankly towards the heavens. His name is Xiaolin, a true traveler of realms. A decade prior, he found himself in this world, and through the whispers of those around him, he discovered he had entered the realm of Game of Thrones. As a fervent admirer of the series in his past life, this revelation left him utterly stunned. The perils of this world, it is no exaggeration to say, rival the most epic of challenges. Not to mention, the mere existence of White Walkers is enough to instill despair. Surviving in this world seemed an insurmountable task. Yet, Xiaolin is not one to succumb to despair. Over the past 10 years, he has diligently strengthened his body, aspiring to become formidable. On the day when winter arrives, he shall possess the strength to confront all dangers. In Westeros, across the narrow sea, Viserys Targaryen, the brother of Daenerys, now gazes coldly at the striking silver-haired woman before him. Sister, what I spoke of earlier, you must acquiesce. This matter is beyond your discretion. After speaking, perhaps sensing his harsh demeanor, he softens his tone, attempting to persuade her with patience. Sister, you must understand that Khal Drogo commands an army of over 100,000. This is our sole opportunity to reclaim the throne. If we miss this chance, the prospect of returning to our homeland and seizing the Iron Throne will be utterly impossible. Brother asks you, you wish to return home, do you not? I. Observing the near manic expression on her brother's face, Daenerys furrowed her brow deeply. Turning away once more, she found herself ensnared in an interminable conflict, uncertain of how to refuse. Sister, I have already made arrangements with the chieftain of that tribe. He will come tomorrow. If you marry him, he will grant me 40,000 elite soldiers. Once I avenge our father, I will bring you back at the earliest opportunity. You can continue to live as a carefree princess. Will you agree to this, sister? Listening to her brother's almost desperate plea, Daenerys clenched her fists tightly. Taking a deep breath, she seemed to make a momentous decision. Just as she began to voice her agreement under her brother's eager gaze, a sound of clapping echoed from the shadows. Then, a man clad in black stepped forward. As dusk approached, illuminated by the crimson glow of the sunset, the features of the man became visible. He possessed fair skin and strikingly handsome features, with an air of maturity that blended confidence with a subtle arrogance. Yet he did not exude pressure. His profound eyes resembled bottomless abysses, and his robust physique radiated an undeniable aura of dominance. Ah, so you intend to bring her back at the earliest opportunity. This emotional appeal deserves full marks. With these words, her brother's expression darkened instantly. He stepped forward, positioning himself protectively in front of Daenerys. Who are you? Do you think the words of a king of the 7 kingdoms are subject to your judgment? Upon hearing this, the man in black let out a cold laugh, inwardly lamenting how accurately her brother matched the portrayal in the tale's arrogant and lacking in intellect. To call himself king of the 7 kingdoms was utterly ludicrous. With this thought, the man could not resist saying, you, the king of the 7 kingdoms? Surely, you must be dreaming. If we were to speak of kings, it certainly would not be you. In my view, your sister beside you is far more deserving of that title than you, the waste. Who the hell are you talking about? Daenerys's brother's face contorted with fury. I'm speaking of you. A man who places all hope on his barely adult sister. How can you not be considered worthless? Noticing the escalating tension in the atmosphere, Daenerys quickly grasped her brother's arm. She shook her head, signaling him to refrain from acting impulsively. But her brother was undeterred. He shoved her aside and glared fiercely at the man. Stay out of men's affairs. Turning around, she inquired of the man in black, who exactly are you? Xiaolin. I am your dear sister. How could you act this way? Xiaolin? I have never heard of you. You worthless fool, of course you haven't. With that, Xiaolin pushed aside Viserys and approached Daenerys. Gently caressing her hair, he whispered, Do you remember me? Faced with Xiaolin's formidable presence, Daenerys instinctively shook her head. Yet, as she scrutinized Xiaolin's features, a sense of familiarity washed over her, prompting her to tentatively ask, Are you that brother Xiaolin? Indeed. Remember how we secretly slept together? It truly is you. Upon hearing those words, Daenerys did not exhibit any embarrassment. Instead, her joy magnified. She suddenly recalled an extraordinarily intriguing boy from her childhood, who often brought her laughter during those gray days, becoming her sole beacon of light. That boy was Xiaolin. Gazing into Daenerys' eyes, which sparkled like a myriad of stars, Xiaolin tenderly touched her forehead. In truth, they had known each other for a decade already. Back then, Daenerys was a little girl on the run. Through Xiaolin's intentional camaraderie, they swiftly became the best of friends. Though their time together lasted only a month, Xiaolin, having lived 2 lifetimes, found it effortless to connect with a young girl. I heard you're getting married yesterday, so I came here specially. Do you have feelings for him? Xiaolin asked knowingly. At this, Daenerys' eyes dimmed. Glancing at her brother beside her, she lowered her head and ceased to speak. All right, do not be disheartened. Do you remember what I told you in her childhood? Xiaolin gently touched her forehead once more. And then, he vanished from their sight. As Daenerys gazed at the spot where Xiaolin had disappeared, she strained to recall, but the memories of her childhood began to blur. The following morning, after washing up and dressing, Daenerys stepped out of her room. The usually quiet streets were now brimming with people. Today marked the day of the tribal chief Khaw's visit. The local governor, Illyrio, dared not show any negligence. He had not only stationed guards throughout the vicinity, but had also summoned the local residents to gather. All these efforts were to welcome the most valiant tribal chief, Khal, on this continent. Before long, the focus of the day, Daenerys, at her brother's fervent insistence, approached the governor. As time passed, the appointed hour for the meeting had long since passed. Yet Khaw's figure remained absent. Worried, Daenerys' brother began to pace, fearing that Khal might change his mind at the last moment. Such a turn of events would mean she would lose the Iron Throne she had long coveted. The governor at the rear observed the anxious demeanor of the latter and offered a reminder. Ko is not particularly punctual. You must remain composed. As the words left his lips, a distant sound of galloping hooves echoed through the air. Before long, several rugged individuals clad in beastly armor approached. The leader, tall and imposing with a long braid, exuded a primal strength. Upon their arrival, the governor, his face brightening with a smile, stepped forward to greet them. However, Ko paid no heed to the governor. His piercing gaze, sharp as that of an eagle, appraised the dragon mother behind him. Noticing this, her brother quickly pulled the dragon mother forward, positioning her in front of Ko for a clear view. Today, the dragon mother was adorned exquisitely. Her hair cascaded down her back like a galaxy, radiating a holy starlight under the blazing sun. She wore a delicate, light purple sheer gown, her voluptuous figure subtly revealed beneath the fabric. In this moment, it was undeniable that no man in the world could resist the allure of the dragon mother. Yet, an unnatural expression clouded her face, her gaze fervently avoiding Ko's. Those with keen observation would certainly notice the glimmer of unshed tears in her muted gray eyes. As Ko remained silent, the atmosphere gradually fell into a hush. After a long appraisal, Ko finally flicked the reins and departed with his kin. Watching Ko's retreating figure, her brother wore a bewildered expression. What was happening? He firmly believed that his sister's unparalleled beauty could easily captivate a barbarian. So how could it have come to this? Amidst his confusion, the governor's voice rang in his ears. Ko's tribe adheres to such traditions. Do not worry. This marriage is essentially a done deal. Upon hearing the governor's words, a smile immediately spread across her brother's face. Yet, just then, the usually silent dragon mother suddenly spoke. I do not wish to marry Ko. I detest the way he scrutinizes me with those eyes, as if I were a mere commodity. I am your sister, your own sister. How would you treat me this way? I truly wish to deliver a devastating blow to you, you baldy. In the end, Daenerys had already transformed her despair into a piercing scream. Upon hearing this, her brother's face clearly displayed impatience. As a girl, your only duty is to marry. Does it truly matter who you marry? Upon hearing such shameless words from her own brother, Daenerys trembled with anger. Her flowing lavender gown billowed without a breeze, her eyes glistening with moisture and reddened with fury. Her quivering lips evoked a sense of pity. Good heavens! I cannot fathom the darkness of your heart, dear brother. At that moment, a voice suddenly resonated through the crowd. Everyone turned to see a man clad in black approaching. Brother Xiaolin. Daenerys clenched her delicate fists, hesitating for a brief moment before rushing to Xiaolin's side. Observing Daenerys on the verge of tears, a flicker of anger ignited within Xiaolin. Even having witnessed her brother's despicable nature on television, witnessing it firsthand was infuriating. You again, Governor, summon the guards to apprehend him. This troublemaker has come to disrupt. The expression on Daenerys' brother darkened ominously. Soon, at the governor's command, the area was swarmed with guards. Just then, a mechanical voice echoed in Xiaolin's mind. Ding. Mission issued. Teach Viserys Targaryen a lesson. Success reward. 12 flying swords. Failure punishment. Physical castration. After years of silence, the system has finally issued a mission once more. However, what purpose does it serve to teach Daenerys' brother a lesson? In Xiaolin's perspective, it would be far more gratifying to eliminate him outright. Yet, in the brief span of thought, he comprehended the reasoning. Currently, Daenerys still harbored feelings for her brother. Should he act rashly and kill him, it would only alienate Daenerys from him. Naturally, if she were an ordinary woman, Xiaolin would not concern himself with her sentiments. But this woman is Daenerys, the one destined to command an army of unsullied, wield 3 dragons, and nearly unify the 7 kingdoms. Such power cannot be underestimated. In Xiaolin's strategy, he intended to acquire all these external forces through Daenerys. Thus, it is imperative that she holds a favorable impression of him in the initial stages. With this thought, a glimmer of brilliance crossed Xiaolin's eyes. Yet, almost immediately, a warm smile graced his lips. After offering simple comfort to Daenerys, Xiaolin stepped forward, his gaze sharp as an eagle's, his presence radiating like an overwhelming tide. In an instant, the guards surrounding him felt a sense of dread wash over them, their expressions shifting dramatically. Charge, you worthless fools. What are you waiting for? With Viserys' words hanging in the air, the guards had no choice but to charge forward, steeling themselves. The lead guard was the first to rush towards Xiaolin, brandishing his broadsword. However, Xiaolin merely sidestepped with ease, effortlessly evading the attack. With a swift and powerful swing of his fist, he struck the guard squarely in the chest. The immense force shattered the guard's heart instantly. In a single blow, he left the crowd in utter astonishment. The governor at the back widened his eyes in disbelief, while Daenerys' brother, Viserys, dropped his jaw in shock. Could one man's strength truly be so formidable? It was simply inconceivable, as Xiaolin delivered this earth-shattering punch. The remaining guards halted in their tracks, exchanging glances filled with trepidation. None dared to advance any further, plunging the arena into a tense stalemate. Viserys, his expression darkening, bellowed from behind, "You lot, go after him. What are you afraid of with just one man?" However, contrary to his commands, the guards remained disobedient, with some even retreating in fear. It was evident that Xiaolin had genuinely frightened them. With the standstill persisting, Viserys' face twisted into an expression more grotesque than one who had tasted excrement. Just as he was about to utter something, Xiaolin, at the center of the tempest, interjected with a mocking grin, pointing a finger at Viserys. "You pathetic coward," barking from the back. "If you're so bold and fearless, come at me yourself. Why trouble these guards?" At this proclamation, all eyes turned to the mortified Viserys. What is the matter? Afraid? How laughable. The ruler of the 7 kingdoms has turned coward. Furious, Viserys retorted, "Do you think I'm afraid?" With that, he charged down from the platform, snatching a long sword from among the guards. Observing his aggressive demeanor, Xiaolin chuckled softly. Truly, he was the most incompetent prince in the realm. Merely provoking him had drawn him into the fray. Were it not for his slight utility, Xiaolin would have relished the opportunity to dispatch this fool with a single punch. As Viserys assumed a stance that hardly qualified as combat-ready, Xiaolin's demeanor shifted to one of seriousness. "Xiaolin, brother," Daenerys called from behind, and when Xiaolin turned to her, she solemnly shook her head. Xiaolin offered a wry smile, assuring her, "Fear not. With you here, I shall not harm him." Just as Daenerys felt a wave of gratitude, Viserys suddenly seized the moment. Distracted during our duel, are we? Xiaolin, prepare to die? His face contorted with a near-manic fervor. He raised the longsword high above his head and swung it down toward Xiaolin. However, having sensed Viserys' intentions well in advance, Xiaolin merely sidestepped, evading the lethal strike. In a swift, fluid motion, he retaliated with an open palm, striking Viserys across the face with a resounding crack that echoed throughout the arena. The sound rang in everyone's ears, followed by Viserys' startled cry as he instinctively covered his right cheek with both hands, leaving Daenerys utterly stunned. However, when her brother was struck, she, as his sister, felt not a trace of emotion. This phenomenon was so subtle that even she remained oblivious to it. Yet, this scene unfolded before Xiaolin's very eyes. It appeared that the mother of dragons' dependence on her brother was gradually diminishing. It was likely that before long, even if she were to take her brother's life, she would harbor no resentment in her heart, just as the final act of Khal, who brutally ended her brother's life before her. It would be unjust to label the mother of dragons as cold-hearted. After all, it was her brother who had instigated this series of unfortunate events, repeatedly pushing away the sister who relied on him. Following this, a sense of disquiet filled the air, yet the system's voice remained silent. Was one strike insufficient, or was her approach too gentle? After a brief contemplation, Xiaolin concluded that both factors played a role. To fulfill the system's task, she would have to make some sacrifices. With a silent sigh, Xiaolin shook her hand and strode toward Viserion. "Don't come any closer," Viserion cried, his hand pressed against his right cheek as he retreated. He had brought shame upon the royal lineage. If his father were still alive to witness his son in such a pitiful state, he would surely be driven to the brink of despair. "I merely slapped you. Must you react in such a manner?" Xiaolin said, her brow furrowed in resignation. With a powerful push against the ground, she propelled herself toward Viserion like a cannonball. In the next moment, a cold smile adorned Xiaolin's face as she appeared before the terrified Viserion. Without a moment's hesitation, she raised her hand. Crack! Another sharp sound echoed through the air, followed by a flurry of slaps raining down upon Viserion's face. Were there anyone nearby? They would surely hear Xiaolin murmuring amidst the strikes. "Why hasn't there been a prompt yet? Why hasn't there been a prompt yet?" In the span of a mere minute, she had delivered hundreds of blows, and Viserion's visage had transformed into that of a swollen pig's head. Ding. Congratulations, host. Task completed. System rewards being distributed. Ding. Congratulations, host. You have received 12 flying swords. The reward has been placed in the system warehouse, available for collection at any time. Is it over? Upon hearing the ethereal mechanical voice, Xiaolin unceremoniously discarded the barely conscious Viserion to the ground. She then disregarded everyone else and summoned the system panel. Host, Xiaolin. Strength, 90. Speed, 90. Nervous reaction, 100 max. Skill, Introduction to Combat. Warehouse, 12 flying swords. Note, skill levels are categorized as Beginner, Proficient, Mastery, Pinnacle, Ultimate, Divine level. After perusing her panel, Xiaolin fell into deep contemplation. Now is not the most opportune moment to contemplate rewards. It seems I must find a quiet hour in the dead of night to engage with these 12 flying swords. Xiaolin, are you all right? The urgent voice of Daenerys pierced through the air, pulling Xiaolin's consciousness back to reality. Of course, I am fine. Just a bit of pain in my hand. You little girl, why do you concern yourself with me, a mere outsider, instead of your own brother? Xiaolin scratched his head, a smile illuminating his face as he gazed at Daenerys. Not at all. Daenerys's cheeks flushed crimson, and she turned away to examine the injuries of Viserys. Dany, in my past, I was somewhat weak, unable to stand before you amidst numerous trials. But now, I feel equipped to shield you from all harm. Will you accept my request? As Xiaolin's words echoed, Daenerys, crouched on the ground, visibly trembled. I seek all data. The fate of this narrative hinges upon it. Dear readers, I implore your support. 100 tokens, and I shall work through the night to ensure your satisfaction. Furthermore, I reiterate, some names will be replaced with titles. A consideration for those less familiar with the world of Westeros. Should you find this unnecessary, kindly voice your thoughts in the review section, and I shall amend it to include proper names in the future. Daenerys, with her conflicting feelings, received the 12 flying swords, and then her entire being quaked. After a protracted moment, she finally rose, inhaling deeply, and turned to face Xiaolin. Suddenly, a smile graced her lips as she gently patted his chest. I know you are formidable. I can foresee that you will undoubtedly become the mightiest man across the continent. But for now, I have someone to protect me. Xiaolin, the sister-in-law you encounter in the future will be even better. Enough said. I must attend to my brother now. With that, She summoned 2 guards to carry the half-conscious Viserys away. As she departed, Daenerys briefly turned back to Xiaolin. Yet, it was but a fleeting moment. Xiaolin, take care of yourself. Afterward, she resolutely vanished from his sight. Feeling the dampness in his chest, Xiaolin smiled. Was this a case of conflicting emotions? Perhaps it was. However, this was not the Daenerys of the future, proud and self-satisfied, ready to devastate cities at the slightest provocation. She even mentioned that someone was already protecting him. Xiaolin understood the underlying implication. She wished to distance herself from him. Yet, the deeper meaning was clear to him as well. She feared being a burden to him. After all, the very ones who sought to overthrow House Targaryen were still pursuing Daenerys and her kin. Should she accept Xiaolin, he would be faced with relentless peril. Naturally, such concerns belonged to the future. For now, he remained in the present. On this continent, the most valiant and formidable chieftain, Khal, commands an army of 40,000 barbaric warriors and has set his sights on the Dragon Mother. If Khal were to discover the existence of Xiaolin, the outcome for Xiaolin would be dire. Yet, this is not merely Xiaolin's conjecture. The genuine tears upon his chest speak volumes. Contemplating this, he smiled wryly. Truly, she is the woman destined to almost unify the 7 kingdoms. Her meticulous nature is evident. However, this also subtly underscores Xiaolin's significance in her heart. After all, during the shadowy chapters of the Dragon Mother's childhood, it was Xiaolin who brought her the sole glimmer of joy. Sigh. This young lady cares for me so deeply. I must reciprocate her sentiments. In a few days, it is likely that Khal will come to claim the Dragon Mother. It seems my first legion is on the horizon. With a silent acknowledgement, Xiaolin's eyes sparkled with determination. Casting one last glance in the direction where the Dragon Mother had departed before turning to walk away in the opposite direction. Little did Xiaolin know that. Just beyond the corner of his sight, the Dragon Mother sat despondently upon the ground, her fingers clenched into fists as she struck her heart in anguish. Tears streamed relentlessly from her eyes, her heart aching profoundly. I'm sorry, she rasped, uttering those 3 words. As dusk faded, the entire continent was cloaked in a darkness as deep as ink. Beneath the ancient trees, Xiaolin focused his thoughts to connect with the system, retrieving a set of 12 flying swords from his repository. In the next moment, a flash of white light flickered from his hand. Almost instantaneously, a palm-sized box of red sandalwood appeared in his grasp. The luminous moonlight danced upon the box, bestowing it with an air of mystery. Xiaolin inhaled deeply, channeling all his thoughts toward the red sandalwood box. The box was exquisitely carved, adorned with intricate patterns representing the 12 distinct flying swords. Exercising patience, he rubbed his hands together and gradually opened the box. A starry brilliance met his gaze. The 12 miniature flying swords lay serenely within the red sandalwood box, accompanied by a piece of parchment beneath them. Upon extracting the parchment, he read a line inscribed upon it. The flying swords possess sentience. Please take good care of them. When the host harmonizes with the swords, a single strike from 1,000 miles away will prove fatal. Astonished, he marveled at the prowess of this little artifact. But how to wield it? As soon as the thought crossed his mind, the system's voice chimed in. Ding. The host need only let a drop of blood fall upon the 12 flying swords to establish a connection. Note, the flying swords originate from a higher realm. Initially, they could only be wielded through internal energy, but considering the differences in world rules, the system has granted them life. In other words, as long as the host resonates with the swords, no cost is required for direct control. How intriguing. Thus, one could liken the 12 flying swords to 12 loyal pets, akin to the 3 great dragons of Daenerys. How astonishing. The thought alone sends a shiver down one's spine. With this in mind, Xiaolin felt a surge of excitement within. He bit his finger, allowing his blood to drip onto each of the 12 swords. In the next moment, an unusual sensation flooded his heart. Xiaolin glanced at the distant trees, and with a mere thought, the 12 swords shot forth in unison. Boom! A thunderous sound echoed as a tree, as thick as a basket, was pierced through, crashing to the ground. Perhaps there would be regrets in the Game of Thrones, but this was not one of them. The mighty Khal was on his way to fetch Daenerys, and you were absent? Goodness! Was their power truly this formidable? Xiaolin, his face a mask of shock, leaped down from the ancient tree, gazing at the severed trunk. Even with 2 lifetimes of experience, he could not suppress his exclamation. Observing the 12 swords, their tips pointed downward, suspended in midair, Xiaolin's heart brimmed with joy. Yet, how to retract them? Just as he pondered, the 12 swords, seemingly attuned to his thoughts, twisted their blades and soared back towards him. Goodness! These swords possess a will of their own. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than a series of whooshing sounds filled the air. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The swords moved with such swiftness that Xiaolin had no time to react. In the next heartbeat, the tips embedded themselves into his chest. Yet, instead of the anticipated pain, he felt nothing. What was happening? Bewildered, Xiaolin instinctively looked down at his chest. To his astonishment, neither his body nor his clothing bore any marks. This was unexpected. The ancient tree had been cleaved in two, yet he felt no injury. Could it be? The realization dawned upon him, and he hurriedly removed his shirt. To his surprise, an ancient sword was imprinted upon his chest. How intriguing! These 12 flying swords had actually integrated into his very being. Remarkably, it resembled the tattoos from his previous life. Delight filled Xiaolin as he donned his clothing once more and returned to the ancient tree for slumber. Time flowed like a fleeting shadow, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. One morning, as the sun rose, Xiaolin abruptly opened his eyes. Calculating the time, he mused that Khal should be arriving soon. It appeared that it was time to take action. Murmuring to himself, he descended from the ancient tree and made his way toward the town. Meanwhile, in the town, the governor, Illyrio, indulging in a massage from a maid, suddenly received word from Khal. He was coming to retrieve Daenerys today? Upon learning this, the governor's expression grew serious. After a moment of silence, he commanded his guards, quickly, summon her brother to bring Daenerys here. Additionally, gather all the city's guards to welcome Lord Khal. Yes, at once. As the voices of the two guards faded away, silence enveloped the field. The governor, having completed his tasks, wore a grave expression. Ultimately, after retreating to his chamber to don formal attire, his demeanor transformed. As the most prominent leader of the nearby tribe, Malwang Cao warranted his utmost caution. Otherwise, should he offend, it would matter not that he was a governor. In his fury, Cao could easily raze this humble town to the ground. In stark contrast, upon receiving the news, the brother of the Dragon Queen was elated. After such a lengthy period, having thought this marriage was doomed, who would have anticipated Cao's return? Did this not signify renewed prospects for his army? With this thought, his spirits soared, disregarding his comically swollen visage, and he hastened to the Dragon Queen's chamber. Dear sister, you must prepare yourself at once. Khal has come to escort you, he called out, and as the door swung open, he was struck dumb upon seeing the Dragon Queen. Sister, what has happened? Why are you in tears? With Cao's imminent arrival, how could she present herself in such a state? He rushed out to summon the waiting maidservants. Quickly, make my sister look splendid. Yes, my lord, replied the maidservants, approaching the Dragon Queen. Yet, overwhelmed by sorrow for Xiaolin, despair crept into her heart. Hurry, stop dawdling. Viserys, standing by, urged the maidservants on. At that moment, the normally obedient Dragon Queen suddenly broke free from the maids, shouting at him, Brother, you are being unreasonable. You know I hold no affection for that barbarian. Observing his tearful sister, Viserys merely frowned, showing no regard for her feelings. Instead, he stepped forward, seizing her by the arms, and turned to the maidservants, bellowing, What are you standing there for? Get on with the makeup. You are no longer my brother. You are a scoundrel. A disgrace. I curse you. May you rot in hell. The Dragon Queen glared fiercely at Viserys, each word almost squeezed through clenched teeth. Humph. Who are you trying to intimidate? Viserys merely scoffed at her display. Half an hour later, thunderous hoofbeats echoed from outside. He has arrived. Khal is here. Viserys exclaimed with delight. In that moment, he envisioned his army beckoning him. Shaking his head, he grasped the Dragon Queen's arm and led her outside. Upon opening the door, they beheld Khal astride his warhorse. The courtyard was teeming with Dothraki riders, easily numbering over 100. The Dragon Queen gazed upon these savages, her heart heavy with fear and profound despair. She cast a sidelong glance at the sharp scissors concealed in her hand, her gaze gradually solidifying with determination. If Khal truly intended to take her away today, she would not hesitate to plunge the scissors into her heart. In other words, she was prepared to confront this unjust fate with her very life. At that moment, the ever-loyal Viserys, standing alongside Daenerys, spoke up. Khal, my sister can accompany you. But when shall I receive the 40,000 cavalry you promised me? As his words echoed, a profound silence enveloped the gathering. The Horse Lord Khal fixed a deep gaze upon Viserys before redirecting his attention to Daenerys. Come back with me to the tribe, and I shall allow you to select 40,000 warriors yourself. Thank you, Horse Lord, Viserys replied, his tone exceedingly humble. He then nudged the seemingly wooden Daenerys beside him and commanded sternly, What are you waiting for? Go find your husband. Just then, Daenerys, who had remained silent with a vacant stare, suddenly smiled. However, this smile was eerily unsettling. Just as Viserys was taken aback, Daenerys abruptly raised her arm. It was then that everyone realized she was holding a pair of sharp scissors. In the blink of an eye, before anyone could react, Daenerys swung her arm down with unyielding resolve, stabbing fiercely at her chest. No, my 40,000 cavalry. Viserys' face contorted with fear as he hurried forward to intervene. If Daenerys were to perish now, how would he ever gather those 40,000 cavalry? Without them, who would fight for his Iron Throne? No, Daenerys must not die. Yet, the events transpired far too swiftly for Viserys to intervene. No, at that critical moment, a shadow appeared before Daenerys. In a flash, the scissors were snatched away. What are you doing with those scissors, girl? What if you hurt yourself? Hearing the familiar voice, Daenerys' eyes widened in surprise. There stood Xiaolin, clad in black, right before her. Xiaolin. In an instant, Daenerys threw herself into Xiaolin's embrace. Overwhelmed by a long-lost sense of safety, tears streaming down her face. Xiaolin, you shouldn't have come. Khal has brought many people. You must leave. I will hold him off. After a moment, Daenerys pushed Xiaolin away and spoke earnestly. Ding. Side quest initiated. Eliminate Khal Drogo. Subjugate his tribe. Become the new tribal leader. Quest success reward. 3 drops of true dragon blood. Quest failure penalty. Physical castration. Physical castration again. This system truly has a mischievous streak. Nevertheless, what exactly is this true dragon blood? Never mind. I shall complete the quest and claim the reward first. As she contemplated this silently, upon the warhorse, Khal furrowed his brow deeply, casting a pointed gaze at the governor and Viserys, his meaning unmistakable. What does this signify? He had yet to embrace his own wife. Yet now she was in the arms of another? The governor, being a man of discernment, comprehended Khal's unspoken thoughts, yet was at a loss for words. How could he possibly inform Khal that his wife had long since pledged her heart to another, leaving him in a state of betrayal? Such a revelation was utterly impractical. He feared that before he could articulate a response, his own head would roll. In the midst of this hesitation, Xiaolin spoke up. So you are Khal? Well, I must say, what is the purpose of a grown man sporting such a long braid? Are you trying to resemble a woman? Let me tell you. If you wish to dress as a woman, at least do it properly. Look at you, exposing your shoulders. Who are you trying to entice? At these words, the formidable Khal erupted in indignation. Do you seek death? He bellowed, dismounting his steed. However, instead of displaying the strength of the Dothraki's greatest leader, the mightiest man on this road, he suddenly faltered, collapsing to the ground. His eyes widened in horror, and his body convulsed as he grasped his throat tightly. The governor, Viserys, and the entire entourage of Khal were rendered utterly bewildered. What was happening? 100 fierce savages looked at one another in confusion. Why had their leader crumpled to the ground? Just as the atmosphere thickened with uncertainty, the earth beneath Khal was stained with a pool of crimson blood. Gasp! Had the war king Khal perished? Viserys returned to the tribe. The strongest man on this continent had fallen just like that? The invincible Khal had met his end dismounting from his horse. The chief of a clan commanding 100,000 had inexplicably died. In that moment, all were left in stunned silence. The chief had not died from a fall. He bore a gaping wound in his neck, a complete perforation. Amidst the crowd, a voice cried out, and instantly, the previously still scene erupted into chaos. The mightiest and most ruthless Khal was no more. At that moment, a light, airy voice captured the attention of all present. Xiaolin, did you kill Khal? In this moment, the one who felt the heaviest burden was none other than Viserys, the brother of the Dragon Queen. Khal's demise signified the loss of his military support, indirectly thwarting his aspirations to reclaim the Iron Throne. If there was any discomfort to be felt, Viserys longed to find a wall to collide with in despair. Xiaolin, I will kill you. Viserys, having completely lost his composure, drew a long dagger from the side of a guard and charged towards Xiaolin. Oh, how amusing. It seems this fool's mind has been crushed. Xiaolin let out a quiet sigh, deftly sidestepping and delivering a powerful kick to the figure behind him. Viserys fell to the ground with a thud, curling up and clutching his stomach as he howled in agony. Heaven knows how forceful Xiaolin's kick was. After this act, he turned to glance at Daenerys, whose gaze was frigid, as if Viserys, lying on the ground, was not her brother at all. It seemed that Daenerys had completely lost faith in her ineffectual sibling. In that case, no one could save him now? Xiaolin chuckled coldly, striding towards the crumpled Viserys, who resembled a dead dog. Although he could have used his flying sword to swiftly extinguish Viserys' life, Xiaolin did not wish for him to die so easily. The reason was quite simple. Having watched Game of Thrones, he understood all too well how this useless brother had gradually led the kind-hearted Daenerys to the brink of an abyss. Though he met his demise in the series, since Xiaolin had traversed into this world, he intended to ensure that Viserys' end was far from comfortable. for Daenerys' sake, and for his own unresolved grievances. Before long, Xiaolin stood before Viserys. Ding. Side quest initiated. Eliminate Viserys. Success reward, 1 strength point. An unexpected surprise? Then I shall not hold back. Subsequently, Xiaolin's fists fell upon Viserys' face like a torrential downpour. In a mere half-minute, Daenerys' brother, Viserys, was dead. It is noteworthy that throughout those 30 seconds, Daenerys' expression remained unyielding, her emotions unchanged. Perhaps in her heart, her brother had perished the moment he arranged her marriage to Khal. Xiaolin's brutal demeanor struck terror into the hearts of the over 100 witnesses present. Even the barbaric Dothraki warriors, accustomed to bloodshed, felt their skin crawl. As for the governor of the town, he was rendered utterly paralyzed with fear at the moment of Viserys' death, half-crouched on the ground, unsure whether he had truly lost his mind or was merely pretending. Regardless of the truth, he could not escape the grim fate awaiting him. When it all came to an end, aside from Daenerys and the 100 or so Dothraki warriors brought by Khal, the remaining spectators lay slain by the flying swords, with not a single survivor. At this moment, Xiaolin stood upon the steps, coldly surveying the warriors below. You Dothraki hold strength in the highest regard. I wonder, having defeated Khal, could I be your chieftain? A profound silence enveloped the gathering. At that moment, a robust man clad in leather armor stepped forward, his muscles rippling. Witnessing this, Xiaolin could not help but question. Are you lacking in common sense? What is the matter? Do you think too highly of yourself? Yet, the man said nothing, his eyes resolute as he advanced towards Xiaolin. For heaven's sake, I do not wish to make an example of you, and yet you insist on approaching? Sigh. Very well, very well. Since this individual seeks death, I shall reluctantly assist him just this once. With this thought in mind, Xiaolin hesitated no longer. He charged down from the platform and delivered a powerful punch that struck the man's face. Bang! Once more, a life was extinguished. Is there anyone who dares to defy? As Xiaolin's triumphant voice resonated throughout the arena, the attendants brought by Khal hesitated for a moment, ultimately succumbing to Xiaolin's formidable strength, kneeling in allegiance. We shall become your valiant warriors, forever following in your footsteps. From this day forth, the direction you point shall be our battlefield. Thus, all the attendants brought by Khal were incorporated into Xiaolin's ranks. 3 dragon egg fossils manifested, a miracle unveiled. Today, the largest clan among the Dothraki on the eastern continent, the Horse Tribe, should have been an ordinary day, yet the entire clan was bustling with activity. On the throne of tents, before Xiaolin lay 3 scaly, peculiar eggs. As he reached out to examine one closely, a familiar voice echoed in his ears. Brother Xiaolin, what is this? Oh, it's nothing much, just 3 dragon egg fossils I acquired from others. Is this truly a dragon egg? Upon hearing this, the dragon mother was instantly intrigued. She picked up one of the eggs, and even after centuries, the scales glimmered with vibrant luster, appearing almost lifelike. Long ago, her ancestor, Aegon I, unified the 7 kingdoms of Westeros with the aid of dragons, becoming the undisputed ruler of the continent. However, due to mismanagement, these magnificent creatures ultimately faced extinction. Even now, the Dragon Mother, though her bloodline carries the essence of true dragons and is referred to as a descendant of dragons, had never laid eyes upon one. Gazing at the dragon egg in her hand and feeling the warmth of her lineage, how could she not be exhilarated? Brother Xiaolin, could you possibly gift me this dragon egg? The Dragon Mother, lost in her joy, blurted out. Yet, as soon as the words left her lips, she regretted them. Despite the closeness of her bond with Xiaolin, this was a dragon egg. Albeit a fossil, it could still fetch a fortune, a rarity beyond price. I apologize. Observing the Dragon Mother's downcast expression, Xiaolin chuckled helplessly. Rising from his throne, he slowly approached her. In the next moment, he gently pushed her back, and she found herself in his embrace. With their noticeable height difference, Xiaolin looked down upon the enchanting Dragon Mother in his arms. Not just one, if you desire. I shall give you all 3. He then placed a light kiss on her forehead. In an instant, the Dragon Mother gasped and pushed Xiaolin away, stepping aside as a rosy hue crept across her fair cheeks. His head spun, and even the matter of the 3 dragon eggs was cast aside. At present, his mind was wholly occupied by the mischievous visage of Xiaolin. Although in their childhood, Xiaolin often took advantage of him. He vaguely recalled the times they would sleep entwined, with Xiaolin's hands wandering. Back then, he was too young to comprehend the implications. Yet now, as he reflected on those moments, a flurry of errant thoughts swirled in the mind of the Dragon Mother, her face growing increasingly flushed, as if her fair skin could bear the imprint of blood. Despite this, the Dragon Mother felt no revulsion. Rather, Her heart raced. Were there onlookers? They would discern at once that the dragon mother was smitten. Meanwhile, Xiaolin remained oblivious to these feelings. The 3 dragon eggs were intended solely for the dragon mother, as he possessed no true dragon bloodline, and thus could never hatch them. It seemed that only the dragon mother possessed such an ability across the entire continent. It was time to find an opportunity to subtly suggest this to her. Chief, everything is prepared outside. We await only your emergence to continue your legacy. A guard's voice echoed from beyond the tent. After acknowledging, Xiaolin stepped outside. In his decade-long sojourn in the realm of power struggles, today marked the arrival of his first army. Though composed of uncultured barbarians, the sheer number was impressive, 100,000 strong. With this thought, an uncommon sense of anticipation blossomed within him. Lifting the curtain, he beheld an endless sea of humanity. As his gaze swept across the gathering, he grasped their sentiments. After all, he had slain the former king of horses, Khal. Consequently, most were submissive to him. Yet, in such a vast expanse, there were always a few proud souls. Their eyes defiant, unwilling to bow to him. How intriguing, he mused. Deciding to reveal his capabilities, he summoned the 12 flying swords within his consciousness. In an instant, to the astonished gazes of the crowd, 12 silver-white swords emerged from his being, hovering gracefully above his head. Under the blazing sun, the blades radiated a blinding brilliance. This extraordinary spectacle left the onlookers dumbfounded, a miracle. But that was not the end. Under Xiaolin's deliberate control, the small, sharp swords immediately expanded, creating a visual shockwave that captivated all present. In the face of such an unfathomable marvel, the entire assembly knelt in reverence. Ding! You have slain Cao Zhigang. Subdued his tribe. Become the new tribal chief. Task completed. Rewards being distributed. 10 drops of true dragon blood. Raise 3 giant dragons as pets? Ding! Congratulations, host, for acquiring 3 drops of true dragon blood. Ding! Host has completed the task of slaying Viserys. Ding! Congratulations, host, for gaining 1 point of strength. It was not a system reminder, but I had completely forgotten that eliminating Viserys would yield rewards. Hearing the prompt in my ears, Xiaolin nodded slightly. System. Open personal panel. Host, Xiaolin. Strength, 91, adult 60. Speed, 90. Nerve reaction, 100 max. Skill, beginner fighting. Inventory, 12 flying swords. 3 drops of true dragon blood. Note, skill levels are classified as beginner, proficient, mastery, exemplary, peak, divine. My strength has increased slightly, and I am now capable of delivering a punch that could potentially end a life. Truly terrifying. However, what exactly are these 3 drops of true dragon blood? System. Elucidate this matter. Xiaolin's eyes narrowed as he sighed inwardly. Function of true dragon blood. Can enhance the host's physical strength, granting the host the bloodline of a true dragon. By heavens! Upon reading the explanation, even the usually composed Xiaolin could not help but exclaim. As an ardent fan of Game of Thrones, Xiaolin was acutely aware of the formidable nature of the true dragon bloodline. In addition to augmenting physical strength, its most remarkable feature lies in the innate affinity with dragons, allowing one to tame and command them. The might of dragons is indisputable. A single dragon can effortlessly decimate an entire city. How else could Daenerys, a seemingly frail woman, draw so near to the Iron Throne? It was, after all, due to her dragons. Moreover, possessing the true dragon bloodline would enable him to resurrect those 3 dragon egg fossils entirely on his own, without requiring Daenerys' assistance. In essence, the aid from Daenerys has become negligible for Xiaolin. Contemplating this, a glimmer of brilliance flashed in Xiaolin's eyes. System. Fuse the true dragon blood. Ding! 3 drops of true dragon blood successfully utilized. Note. Over time, the host's bloodline will gradually transform. What? Gradually transform? Please tell me, system. Does this mean that even after fusing the 3 drops of true dragon blood, I cannot instantly attain the true dragon bloodline? The host is quite astute. Damn! Xiaolin felt a surge of frustration. As the words lingered, he could distinctly sense 3 drops of blood, akin to miniature suns, coursing through his veins, actively assimilating the surrounding blood. He understood that these 3 drops were indeed true dragon blood. Yet, the assimilation process is agonizingly slow. When will he truly become a bearer of the true dragon bloodline? Alas, it seems the 3 dragons will still require Daenerys for their revival. Perhaps this is the unyielding law of fate. Having come to this realization, Xiaolin helplessly shook his head. After briefly sketching a few grand plans for the clanspeople below, he turned and retreated into the tent. Inside the tent, Daenerys curiously examined the 3 dragon eggs, her gaze wandering up and down. She then raised her eyes to meet the gentle smile of Xiaolin, her cheeks flushing crimson. How amusing. In our childhood, when we slept together on straw, I never saw you blush like this. Upon hearing this, Daenerys's face reddened even further. Yet, the observant might notice the slight upward curve of her lips. Enough jesting. Let us discuss a serious matter. What serious matter? You aren't about to utter some foolishness again, are you? Seeing Xiaolin's mischievous expression, Daenerys instinctively took a step back. You little minx. Am I the sort of person to indulge in such antics? Very well, I shall not keep you in suspense. Tell me, do you wish to raise 3 colossal dragons as pets? As she spoke, her gaze fell upon the 3 dragon egg fossils resting on the table. Ha ha, brother Xiaolin, that jest is rather poor. Daenerys's first reaction was to assume Xiaolin was merely teasing her. After all, in this age, dragons had long since gone extinct. How could one even entertain the notion of raising such a creature? Moreover, Xiaolin seemed to imply that he intended to hatch those 3 stones. However, upon observing Xiaolin's earnest demeanor, Daenerys restrained her smile. Through their days together, she had come to realize that this man never joked lightly, especially regarding dragons. Could it be that brother Xiaolin was not jesting after all? With that thought, Daenerys excitedly grasped Xiaolin's hand, her voice tinged with urgency. Brother, do you truly have a way to hatch them? The method has always been within you, my dear. Me? How is that possible? Daenerys pointed to herself, shaking her head vigorously. Do not jest. In essence, they are mere stones. How could I possibly hatch them? At that moment, Xiaolin firmly grasped Daenerys' shoulders, his tone serious. Dany, you are the last remaining descendant of House Targaryen in this world. Moreover, you are the sole person capable of hatching them. Gazing at Xiaolin, whose face bore no hint of jest, Daenerys began to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. What must I do? Very simple. The bodies of dragons are forged from blood and fire. Dany, do you know the language of House Targaryen? Blood and fire are of the same essence. Upon hearing this, Daenerys blurted out, momentarily taken aback by Xiaolin's smile. Are you suggesting that, indeed, as long as your blood and fire are poured forth, you can resurrect the dragons from these 3 fossils? What? Daenerys's mind went blank at this revelation. It took her a moment to regain her composure, and she managed a wry smile. But how could blood and fire coexist, unless I were to leap into a pyre? Yet, even if a colossal dragon were to hatch, I would have already perished in the flames. As Daenerys's words lingered in the air, Xiaolin somehow procured a basin filled with charred wood, glowing red from the fire's embrace. Without allowing the latter a moment to react, he flung it upon Daenerys. Ah! Xiaolin, what are you doing? Daenerys exclaimed, flailing to extinguish the burning embers clinging to her. Once she had finally brushed them all away, she turned to Xiaolin with a look of bewilderment. Daenerys, did you not notice that you bear no burns? Upon hearing this, Daenerys immediately scrutinized her own form. She observed that her delicate, light purple gown was now tattered from the embers, revealing her fair, supple skin beneath. Indeed, what is the meaning of this? Those of Targaryen blood are not susceptible to fire. Xiaolin, standing nearby, chuckled in response. Daenerys, whether the dragon can be resurrected hinges entirely on you. I shall step outside to prepare. I will return shortly to fetch you. With that, Xiaolin exited the room. You come here. Seek out a vacant space and gather ample wood. Off you go. Yes, sir, the guard at the door replied respectfully. Although he was unaware of the intentions of the newly appointed leader, he was efficient in his duties. Before long, he returned to inform Xiaolin that the clearing and timber were ready. The location was atop a nearby mountain, spacious and naturally secluded, ensuring excellent privacy. Xiaolin surveyed the area with satisfaction. Very well done. However, you must assign guards around this vicinity. No one is to enter, not even a single bird. If any intruder dares to cross this threshold, you all shall meet your demise. Oh, and ensure that no one approaches or even gazes in this direction. Should anyone defy this order, I will have their entire family slain. Yes, sir. Even if my wife were to come today, I would personally see to it. The guard's response pleased Xiaolin, who then returned his gaze to the task at hand. Now go and prepare. Receiving permission, the guard hastily retreated, fearful that lingering too long might invite Xiaolin's formidable presence upon him. In the saga of Game of Thrones, Daenerys hatched her dragons in this manner. One could only wonder if this humanly contrived endeavor would yield success. All that remained was to leave it to fate. Gazing at the crimson twilight stretching across the horizon, Xiaolin found himself lost in thought, murmuring softly to himself. The elaborate arrangements were made to ensure that no one would witness Daenerys emerging from the flames. As night gradually enveloped the land, casting a vast dark net over the plains, all preparations were complete. Xiaolin led Daenerys to the site where the dragon was to be born. Daenerys, do you fear? To say I am unafraid would be a lie. Yet, for the dragon, I am willing to take the risk. Excellent. Xiaolin seized a torch and cast it upon the dry wooden structure. In an instant, a fierce blaze erupted. The flames swiftly spread to the highest wooden structure at the center, instantly transforming the scene into a sea of fire. The searing light tore through the infinite night, seemingly striving to break free from the shackles of darkness and soar into the sky. As the fire intensified, Daenerys found herself engulfed in the inferno. At that moment, standing nearby with an expression devoid of emotion, Xiaolin murmured softly, hoping that all efforts made were not in vain. From the flames emerged Daenerys, who had been silent for 2 centuries. As dawn gradually broke, the pale blue sky was adorned with a few remaining stars, while the earth appeared hazy, shrouded in a gossamer of silvery mist. The fierce blaze from the previous night had raged on for hours, only to settle into tranquility as the first light of day emerged. Amidst the ashes of the conflagration, Daenerys now cradled 3 dragon eggs. Under the purifying fire, the once stone-like eggs began to shimmer with transparency, revealing their contents beneath the scales. Yet, despite this transformation, the dragons within showed no signs of awakening. Just as Daenerys felt a pang of confusion, the ancient words of House Targaryen echoed in her mind. Blood and fire are one. The bodies of dragons are forged from blood and flame. Now that the flames had been summoned, only blood remained, the blood of her lineage. With this realization, Daenerys understood that the eggs indeed required the nurturing of blood, specifically that of the dragon kin, to meet the necessary conditions. This scarcity was precisely why dragons had become so rare. With pure-blooded dragons extinct, she alone remained, the blood of the true dragon daughter. Gazing at the eggs that were on the cusp of awakening, Daenerys' resolve solidified. Finally, she bit her finger, allowing her blood to drip onto the eggs. The fresh blood was instantly absorbed upon contact. From an external view, one could see streams of blood converging towards the heart of the dragon. In the next moment, the scales of the eggs began to stir, animated by the faint flames, as if they were alive. At the center of this spectacle, Daenerys' face radiated with joy. It was happening. The dragons would rise again. With the last flicker of flame extinguished, a crack formed in the eggshell, followed by the tender roar of a hatchling. Though its voice was not loud, it was profoundly stirring. At the very moment the hatchling's cry resonated, Xiaolin sensed the change and immediately turned his gaze towards Daenerys amidst the ashes. There, upon her shoulder, stood a dark red hatchling dragon with wings, while the other 2 nestled in her arms, albeit significantly smaller in size. As a fan of Game of Thrones, Xiaolin instantly recognized the identity of the dragon. However, at this moment, he had little inclination to meticulously observe the visage of the dragon. The reason was simple. Although he had seen the Dragon Queen before, witnessing her in person brought forth an entirely different sensation. Her skin, as delicate as sheep fat, was nothing short of flawless. After enduring a night of searing flames, the Dragon Queen's fair complexion bore a faint blush, reminiscent of a newborn's. In the face of such a spectacle, which man could withstand? Gulp. Captivated. Xiaolin involuntarily swallowed hard. Observing her brother's astonished demeanor, the Dragon Queen wore a befuddled expression. It wasn't until a gust of wind swept through, causing her to feel a drop in her body temperature, that she realized something was amiss. Glancing down, a flush immediately spread across her cheeks, rendering her as tipsy as one who had indulged in wine. "Could you fetch me a coat?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All right." Xiaolin quickly snapped back to reality, promptly retrieving the garment he had prepared for her the previous day. Thus, amidst the torment of shyness, the Dragon Queen swiftly donned her light purple gauzy gown. Bathed in the dawn's light and accompanied by 3 young dragons, she appeared even more regal in her flowing attire. Were it not for the rosy hue on her face, she would have been utterly perfect. Emerging from the ashes, the Dragon Queen remained exceedingly bashful. "What am I blushing for? It's not the first time we've met. Have you forgotten our childhood?" Xiaolin's retort only deepened her embarrassment. The thought of the Dragon Queen, so commanding in the drama, revealing such girlish shyness before him, stirred Xiaolin's excitement. "And I must say, you possess a unique charm now." "Humph, how annoying. Ha ha ha, come. Let me see the freshly hatched young dragons." At his words, the Dragon Queen pouted slightly, scooping up the largest of the 3 hatchlings and handing it over to the rather irritating Xiaolin. "Here, be careful. The dragons are only affectionate towards the Targaryen family." As soon as she finished speaking, Xiaolin effortlessly took the largest of the trio into his hands. This scene startled the Dragon Queen. Though a hatchling, its strength was formidable. As an ordinary person, Xiaolin seemed utterly unguarded. Was he not risking injury? But in the next moment, an astonishing sight unfolded. The hatchling showed no hostility toward Xiaolin. On the contrary, its demeanor suggested a surprising fondness. Indeed, the young dragon exhibited a peculiar affection for Xiaolin. How could this be? He was not even a descendant of House Targaryen. In other words, he possessed no true dragon blood. The dragon harbored an unmistakable hostility towards him. At this moment, Daenerys, astonished, gazed at the unfolding scene, her heart teetering on the edge of existential doubt. It seemed that, compared to her, the three young dragons exhibited a greater fondness for Xiaolin. Unbeknownst to her, Xiaolin possessed 3 drops of pure dragon blood within him, rendering his lineage even more pristine than her own. This was merely the present. Once his bloodline was fully assimilated by the true dragon essence, Xiaolin would ultimately embody a human-dragon hybrid. Xiaolin, you're not a Targaryen descendant, yet how can you be so close to the dragons? She mused. Perhaps it's because these little creatures saw me second, he chuckled, that they feel such an affinity towards me, having lived 2 lives. He discerned the questions swirling in Daenerys' mind, yet the significance of the true dragon blood within him was too profound to elucidate. Instead, he fabricated a casual excuse to deflect the inquiry. After a brief moment of contemplation, Daenerys found some merit in Xiaolin's explanation and chose not to press further. Instead, she joyfully stood beside him, both engaging with the 3 young dragons. Initially, she had worried that the dragons might resent Xiaolin, leaving her caught in a dilemma. However, it seemed that all concerns had dissipated. Was this not the most favorable outcome? Contemplating this, a surge of happiness blossomed within her, and her gaze softened as she looked upon the towering figure of Xiaolin. In that moment, she resembled a devoted wife, content with all that had been accomplished. Xiaolin supported the frail Daenerys as they strolled slowly towards the heart of the tribe. Nearby sentinels, despite a night devoid of rest, remained alert and energized. Upon seeing Xiaolin emerge from the ritual, they promptly approached him with utmost respect. Chief, yesterday, a brazen lad dozed off. I approached and dealt with him swiftly. One of the guards reported. Excellent. You've shown great wit. I shall have you work by my side in the future, Xiaolin replied nonchalantly. After a brief pause, he added, additionally, fetch a few maidens to assist her with bathing and changing. Also, prepare the finest cuts of meat and bring them to my chamber. Remember, it must be freshly slaughtered. Yes, I shall attend to it immediately, the guard affirmed, keeping his gaze fixed to the ground, his demeanor exceedingly respectful. Xiaolin felt a sense of satisfaction wash over him as he took note of the guard's appearance before escorting Daenerys back to the tribe. Inside the room, Daenerys had already begun her bathing ritual, aided by 3 young maidens. This left Xiaolin alone with the 3 newly hatched dragons. Observing the young dragons soaring about the room, he couldn't help but murmur, truly, they are the mightiest beings on the continent. Just born, and within less than an hour, they are already capable of flight. He extended his palm, and the largest of the hatchlings promptly landed upon it, affectionately nuzzling Xiaolin's hand. Shortly thereafter, the sound of the guards echoed from outside the door. The leader, having just slaughtered a bull, was prepared for the arrival of guests. At that moment, the same guard entered, albeit now bearing a large basin of fresh raw meat. Yet, an unforeseen incident transpired. Lacking the true dragon bloodline, as he stepped over the threshold, he was suddenly besieged by 3 young dragons. Their piercing roars filled the air, and torrents of dragon flames relentlessly surged toward the guard. How could an ordinary sentinel withstand such a concentrated onslaught? Just as despair enveloped his heart, Xiaolin summoned the young dragons away. Go down, he commanded. Understood. The guard, gazing at the impassive leader atop the platform, felt as if he had plunged into an icy abyss. Though he had once held a measure of respect for Xiaolin, it paled in comparison to the terror he now felt. To be an effective leader of a clan, especially one comprising 100,000 souls, Xiaolin understood the necessity of instilling fear in his subordinates. Fear, he knew, could quell all dissent. Without it, even the mightiest of powers would inevitably lead to complications. Observing the guard's reaction, Xiaolin nodded in satisfaction. He casually picked up a piece of sliced beef and tossed it into the air, where it was swiftly snatched by one of the young dragons. The 3 dragons bore a striking resemblance to one another. Thus, a naming convention was warranted to distinguish them. Perhaps, Big Black, Second Black, and Third Black would suffice?